This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, episode 17.
I really appreciate the opportunity to share what I have. I don't have a whole lot, but a little bit I have. Anybody can have it all. The more I interact with more people, the more I get. So the more I get, the more I want to give back. I mean, there's no end to it. The circle is a continuing circle.
This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, a show which answers one question from you, the listener, about CNC router tables, CNC software, hardware, web hosting, and business. I'll help you get started in your CNC hobby or business and help you cut through the confusion.
Today's episode is sponsored by themakersguide.com. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
Welcome to another episode of CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Griggs, and right now we're in the middle of a series where we're talking to people who have built businesses using their CNC router table. And we're really fortunate to have today's guest, Curt Hammond. One of the things that's really unique about Curt is that he's a very welcoming person. In our private Facebook group, he's the CNC Router Tips equivalent of the Walmart greeter. The minute somebody new comes into the group, he's one of the first people to hop on and wish them well and welcome them into the group. And that's a really unique characteristic considering what has happened in his life. So I'm not going to spoil it. Let's get right to it and hear his story in his own words. Today I'm here with Curt Hammond, and Curt is a avid woodworker who's got into the CNC business as a result of some life changes. And we're very glad that he agreed to come on our show today. He's been very active in our Facebook group and very welcoming of all the new people who join the community. So welcome, Curt.
Welcome. Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
So take us back, Curt, to where you were before you got into the CNC business.
We were in Slidell, Louisiana, running several businesses, and then Hurricane Katrina came along and wiped us off the map. So we decided we had to move away and get away from all them problems of the hurricanes, and we moved to Michigan and had to find a way to make an income. And the traditional sign business was not working out the way I wanted it to, so I decided to go into CNC work. And it's worked out real well for me since then.
I'm sorry to hear that you lost everything in Katrina. It seems to be a thread in a couple of interviews that we've had, just how devastating that storm was to that area of the country. When you moved to Michigan, was there a good job market there?
When we first moved here, it seemed to be pretty good, but it wasn't within a few months the economy collapsed. And remember, now we've gone through that 2007, 2008 disaster, and it was quite a struggle at first. Mm-hmm. It literally was broke. We had almost no income, and we had a lot of expenses going out, and so I had to resort to doing whatever I could and making signs. The traditional tools was not working out. The vinyl industry had collapsed, so I saw CNC was the way to go. So I tried to start building my own first CNC, and I started out with a real low cost, cheap piece of work, and it was a disaster. So I immediately threw it in the trash and decided to start working on a new one, and that's where I learned my lessons that's going lowball is not going to work.
Mm-hmm. So what did you end up building?
I built a Joe's rack and pinion machine. First, it was the
from Joe CNC.
Yeah, Joe CNC machine, the first one, which was the screw drive, and then I built the rack and pinion, and then I added on to the Evo, the plates, and the V-lock slide onto it. Mm-hmm. And each iteration got stronger and better. I was able to produce better work.
Now, for those who aren't aware of the Joe's CNC machine, it's available at joescnc.com, and I also built one of those machines, and that's originally how Curt and I met and, came to know each other. So, from start to finish, Curt, in your pursuit to build your machine, how long did it take?
The first one with the screw drive was about 8 weeks of pursuing parts and all that. And when I finally got everything together, as a matter of a couple of weeks, it was put together and ready and up and running.
Mm-hmm. And had you ever done anything with CNC prior to this?
No.
No. So you started an absolute beginner, just like I did.
Right. Brand new CNC. Right.
So did that instantly solve all your problems?
It started to solve the problems. I started getting work right away, but I was limited by the ability of the machine. So I had to figure out a way to make it stronger and faster because, time is money. And I converted it to a rack and pinion and made it to a 4x8 machine instead of a 4x4.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a major change. It was a major difference.
Now, with the larger machine, it would also take longer to go from one end to the other because it had twice as far to travel. But was that the case with going from the lead screws to the rack and pinion, or was there a difference?
Well, the rack and pinion from the lead screws was, with the MDF carriages, was 6 of one, half of the other. But the rack and pinion with the plates was the major change. I could go much, much faster.
With the aluminum plates?
With aluminum plates,
Yeah.
yes. The Evo's design.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Evo is for the Evolution. It's, I think, Joe's third design in this series.
Yes.
Where he really beefed up the machine quite a bit.
Yeah, they put a bigger X-axis beam, and they used the Velox slide for the router motor.
Mm-hmm. Now you're able to cut at different speeds with that?
Yes.
What's typical speed for you when you're working on your projects?
Typical speeds, I run about 120 inches a minute for wood projects. And plastic, I'm up around 200 inches per minute, especially for PVC, Sintra type materials.
Mm-hmm.
And I could probably go faster, but I don't see a need to. Plus, you get to a point where fast is not helping anything.
Yeah, I actually think you're babying your machine, but that's another story. I like going fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So you are also into the martial arts, are you not?
Yes.
All right. So you had a martial arts school that you were the instructor at?
Yes, we have a martial art program. I had my two boys involved in it and some instructors working with me. And we left that in Slidell and moved here and opened one here. And my boys were involved with that until they decided to go their own way. My oldest son is a Thunderbird with the Air Force in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Awesome. He
served time in the desert, and then he went to Las Vegas. My other boy is a Michigan State full scholarship student studying jazz studies.
And what's his? Oh, so, I'm a jazz hack. What's his instrument?
Saxophone, tenor sax.
Ooh, we might have to play sometime.
It's easy. He's on YouTube.
That would be very interesting.
Curt Hammond on YouTube.
Yeah. So you moved to Michigan. You've got a martial arts business going there. You're also doing the CNC business is on the side. What percentage of your work was focused on the CNC, and what percentage on the?
At first, it was 80% was the martial arts, and CNC was the 20%. And after time, it would vary between 80% to 20% martial arts and 80% CNC work, and depended on the jobs and whatnot, and how much I wanted to work. And I got to the point where I was doing too much production work and spending more time working as a job versus actually doing what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. So you never really lacked for CNC work, and so that kind of puts a rest to the question that most of the people have been asking, which was the reason we're doing this series of podcasts of, can you build a business with a CNC router table?
Yes, you can. Yep, yes, you can. The challenge is getting away from the onesie twosies, $10 pieces into the $200 and $300 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of guys on the users tips forum doing little signs and things, which are great, which is good work. And if they make $10 or $15, they're happy. But if you want to make a business out of it, you got to pursue the high end stuff. For example, $100 an hour stuff. That's where it's got to be.
Yeah, a lot of times people will, say, "Well, this is just a hobby for me," or I want to be in business, but I don't really want to be in business, so
Right.
It doesn't matter what I charge. And in some cases, in the $10 signs that these people are making, they're losing money right off the bat.
Yes.
Each one they sell is a loss to them, and they don't even realize it.
Right. Yeah. I sat down and figured out, I thought I was charging a good rate. I CNC'd a panel for our restaurant, and I charged $90. I thought that was a pretty good lick. $90, they supplied all the material, and all I had to do was let the machine run. And then when he came to collect his parts, he says, "I can't believe how inexpensive you were." And then I found out later on he was getting he was paying $300 a sheet, and I'm only getting $90.
Mm-hmm.
So then I sat down and really started figuring out it costs, you got 5 horsepower of motors running, and you got lights running, and you got your time involved. So charging $10 or $15 for a sign, you only have $5 material and getting $10 profit on the surface looks good. But then it costs you $2 or $3 or $20 for a cutter, and it costs you probably $2 or $3 for the electricity alone to cut that part.
Yeah, and every time that they fire it up and sell that low price item, they're it's like they're giving somebody money to buy their product.
Yes, and I understand that mindset because when you're first starting out with the work, you're not confident about your work, and you're really slow, and you're tentative about your selling your product because you just don't know and there's how good or bad it is. Mm-hmm. But after a while, you get some confidence up and get your speed up. Then you start realizing, yes, there can be some money made, and I can't afford to be having them pay me by a lower price for my training anymore. Mm-hmm. The confidence builds up, and then you can start charging the right amount. And whatever the right amount is what is suitable for the person in the shop.
Yeah. So take me through a typical way that you figure out some of the cost involved in creating a piece for someone.
Well, we just did a desk for a lady. It's got some routing, some stuff on it. It took me about an hour to discuss it with her, what she wanted and what kind of decorations she wanted on it. Then it took me about an hour and a half to collect all the materials for the job. So then it took me about an hour or so to design it and get it on paperwork and get it ready to put on the CNC so I can cut the designs into it and cut the legs and all that. And then it took me about 2 hours to assemble it. So I've got probably almost 10 hours of work in that desk alone.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to sell that for $50, that's $5 an hour. It's not worth it. Yep. So then you start figuring out how much electricity you use on the machine and how much your lights cost.
Yeah, it starts to add up very quickly, and people forget about consumable items like the router bits. You break a router bit, a $40 router bit or a $20 router bit, gets added into the price.
Right.
And then there's sandpaper and glue and all your finish. Yep. Yeah, it starts to add up, and until you take a detailed look at what your costs are, you're doing yourself a major disservice, and you're probably being underpaid.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I'm always harping on the forum. I said you guys probably need to double that price, and I always get pushback when the new guys hear that, and I'll point to someone. I don't know if you follow Seth Godin or some of the other thought leaders that are out there about business. Seth did an article about why you should double your asking price for your work, and he was just talking about in general, most people undervalue the time and the expense that's involved in producing whatever it is, whether it's an ebook online or a desk, a full-blown desk. People don't take the time to figure out and know their numbers.
That's right. That's the shame about it. Well, if a guy's got a little shop and he sits down and figures out how much it costs per hour to run that machine, and if he figures it's 5 horsepower per hour, and then he figures up his kilowatts he's using on it, and he finds out how much the electric company's charging him per kilowatt. Mm-hmm. So he'll find out that it's probably $2 or $3 an hour to run that machine.
Yep, and if you've got a heater like we have in upstate New York,
yes.
If you've got an electric heater, you're really paying for those kilowatts.
Yes, and then my lights, I've got probably 1,000 watts of lighting in my place so I can see what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And then you got to put your gas in for drive around and get your materials. And then you got your design time, which is a couple hours anyway on a job.
Yep, and all of these things have to be figured in. There's just no substitute for it. I often talk about some of the services that are out there to teach people basic business skills and things like that. And there's Score is a free service that will teach you how to run a business, how to think about your business, write a business plan, that sort of thing. Maybe give you connections in your local area with Chamber of Commerce or other web developers and that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. But go ahead.
There's a book called The E-Myth, which is by Michael Gerber. Mm-hmm. That was a game changer. And I read his book. It's about the poor man, rich man, mm-hmm. and the skinny man, fat man. Talks about the guy who's trying to turn himself from a technician into an entrepreneur. The E-Myth is an entrepreneur myth. Mm-hmm. And it goes from a guy who's a very good technician but a very poor businessman. He doesn't charge enough for his work. And then he goes through an evolution of learning how to develop systems to increase his speed and increases his income, which also gives him confidence to the point where he can raise his prices to the point he really needs to be at. The E-Myth. That's one of the game changers for me.
Excellent. Yeah, I do like that that book. That is one of the best books on that mindset.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, have you by any chance read a book called The $100 Startup?
I obtained that, and I haven't got a chance to read it yet.
Oh, you'll love it. That's one of one book that I look to quite a bit when I'm talking to people about CNC. It's figuring out what it is that you want to do, and then figuring out a different way to do it inexpensively, so that you can create the.
Right. You mentioned it the other day, and I immediately went out and tried to find it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, excellent.
I'm not afraid to take some advice on that kind of stuff, because I certainly don't know very much about it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that got me thinking on this was that book and another book called The 4-Hour Work Week. And that one is by Tim Ferriss. Both, if you talk to many entrepreneurs or solopreneurs around there, guys who are doing it on their own, they'll always point back to the 4-Hour Work Week if they, come up recently. It's, it's a different way of doing things, outsourcing a lot of things that you aren't good at or don't enjoy, so that it frees you to do those things that you are good at.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. For example, that's a good point, because there's a tipping point I reached in my business and my sign business where I have a 5-foot printer in my basement where it costs me a certain amount to run that thing. Well, it's to the point now where I can outsource my prints much cheaper than I can do it myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I get my design ready, I ship it off to the printer, and then within 3 days it's at my door already done to the perfection. So there's nothing more I could ask for, and I can't do it that cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did the same thing when I was doing model airplane business. I would do a prototype of something. I had a friend gave me a laser cutter, and it was very slow laser cutter. So I would do my prototype work, make one off of the kit, and then I would send it off to another guy who had a very fast laser and who enjoyed doing that day in and day out. And he, would send me a box of parts, which then I could, put into kits. And so, freeing me up to design. And while I was doing that, I was very productive. I didn't realize at the time that's what I was doing, but, now that I realize that's a valid model, for business, that's really quite smart to do.
Right. Have somebody else cut it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would lend itself well. I mean, a lot of guys could pick up additional work with their CNC routers if they were doing some production work for others. I don't particularly enjoy that myself, but others might.
Right. There are some guys out there that love to sit there and watch it run. I don't have that mindset. I got to change it and make new things all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I seldom make the same thing twice with my machine. It's just the way I'm wired.
Right. I made martial art belt displays. It was like a shadow box display. And when I first started making it, I couldn't make enough, fast enough. People were ordering 10, 15, 20 at a time. And it got to be a production job, and I really didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. So this was an item that would allow them to, like somebody got a black belt or whatever, this would display it in a nice way?
But yeah, as a student went through his ranks to get his belts, some systems have 10, some have 8, some have 15, whatever it may be. They would invariably find their belts stacked into a dresser somewhere. Well, then my students saw the shadow box I was making, and they pointed out something. Yes, these belts will be in this box forever, and they'll remember it, and they'll look forward to filling them slots up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a goal-setting device. And some of the other martial art schools saw that, and they just had to have them. And so next thing I know, I'm making as many as I could, fast as I could.
Mm-hmm.
It was a high-end product as well. It was selling up around $150 a piece.
I gotta love that.
Well, yeah. So retail was, and wholesale was a little bit less than that. But when you make 60 of them at a time, that's $6,000 in your pocket. That's a nice lick.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gets to the point where it's production work, and who really likes to do that? Some guys love it, but I just don't have it in me.
Mm-hmm. So, Curt, during your time in the CNC business, did you ever have a money milestone that, first time, tell us about the first time you actually sold something?
Yeah, I was, I got my Joe's machine running to where it was satisfactory. And then looking back, I realized how slow it was, but it was running to the point where I could trust what it was going to make. And a lady said she needed letters for her fitness center. I said, yes, I have some letters. I can make those. And she said, how much? And I said, it'd be $300 for those letters. And she says, bring them. And she signed the agreement right there on the spot. I was so happy. I roared home and cut those letters and brought them back through that night and got my check for $300. And that was a real milestone to get some money in my pocket, because I had spent several $1,000s to build that machine, and it was dear to me. It was on a credit card. And so here it was, $300, and it was my vindication. He said, yes, I can make a living at this. And so that $300 set me free. I was able to go out and buy more material, and I pursued it hard. I worked really hard for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I was working all night long and cutting new letters and all kinds of things for that CNC machine, and it made a lot of money real fast.
Mm-hmm. When did you? How long did it take you to pay it off?
I paid off the Joe's machine, the first iteration, probably within including the software, the Vector Aspire, is probably within a few weeks. It could have been a couple months. It's probably a couple months anyway.
Mm.
And then no sooner I got it paid off, and then I upgraded the rack and pinion, made a 4x8 because I had some work coming in that was bigger than 4x4. And it cost me probably another $700 or $800 to upgrade. And it paid for itself within a matter of a couple of weeks.
How much did you have in the machine when you first built?
The first one,
Mm-hmm.
I would guess I was probably in it for about $2,000.
Yep, and that was for a 4 foot by 4 foot machine.
Yes.
And then you upgraded it. You said you put about another $700 into that. So
Yes.
Yeah. And then when you went to the Evo, that probably added at least another $1,000 to the cost.
Probably another $1,000. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's still under $5,000 for a machine that would compete with pretty much any commercial machine.
I would venture to guess 90% of the work I can compete with anybody out there with anything.
Mm-hmm. The downside is you had to build it.
Yes, had to build it.
Yep.
And I was fortunate. I have machine builder skills from way, way back. So I was able to scrounge and collect things from different areas, bolts and nuts and angle iron and pieces, different pieces I could scrounged up and got together without having to pay very much money for it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people pay a lot of money to build a brand new, but I just didn't have the money.
Yeah, I was taking some of my lunch money, the money I was supposed to eat off of during the week, and putting that.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, putting that away for a long time. It took me about 9 months to gather enough money to get all of the parts that I needed. So I bought them a little bit at a time.
Right, and I was in the exact position. I went cheap and barely got into it, and I soon realized it was going to be a mistake because, like I said, the very first iteration was a little tabletop, and it went right to the trash. You just couldn't do what I needed to do, and that's why I'm a little bit vocal about avoiding going cheap. Either some people want to do it because they just want to practice with it. That's no problem. But going cheap and trying to business with it, you can't do it because it costs you too much time and material, and too many mistakes, and too much wasted material, and inaccuracy and speed. It hurts you more in the long run. So buy your second or third machine up when you're going to do that. So you go out and you buy your cheapest machine, like $600 or a $1,000 machine, but you dream of having a $2,000 one, and then you dream after that maybe getting a $5,000 one. I would skip that first one completely, from my experience, because it's just a waste of your time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get the next one up, and then pray to get the next one after that, because the low cost machines can't do the work.
Yeah, I got to confess that I was a little bit anti desktop machine. For the longest time, I really couldn't see where the desktop machine was going to fit into my workflow, and that's just because I was, further along down the road than a beginner would be. But it wasn't until maybe a month ago that I actually realized where those machines come in, and I'm working up a blog post and an article explaining where I think they fit in, and what their best use for them with the speed that they're able to cut, and the amount of material that they're able to remove, to try and give guys a leg up. Don't waste your time trying to do big 3D carvings on these little tiny machines.
Right.
It will take you 2 days to do it.
Right.
And when you go back and try and figure out what your, per hour cost was to make the product, you could never sell it at a point where you can make a profit. So you have to target the type of work that you're going to do with these little machines to suit them. And, I hope to get that out very quick, in the next week or so, and try and share that with the listeners, because I think it might help the way they think about things.
The little desktop machine has a perfect machine to be a trainer on. If I were to just start out again, I may consider getting a desktop machine to be a CNC trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can learn your code and how to administer your codes and lay out your work, and that'll be a good start.
Yep. And, once you progress beyond that, most of the companies that have the little desktops also have bigger machines. And so, you can then pass it on, or you can put that machine to work doing something that it's specifically suited for while you're working on the big machine. So,
yes.
Yeah.
A friend of mine makes fly boxes, and he does inlay.
Mm-hmm.
I think a little desktop machine would probably be just right for somebody doing that kind of work.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a number of applications where the desktop machine would work out fine. So, those guys who went out and that was their path, we understand. You don't have money when you begin.
Right.
So you buy what you think you can afford and get by with. And, whether that's the wise course, it remains to be seen. I don't think it is the wise course. But once you've done that, then, let's step it up now and go and pay it off and, start saving towards the new one.
Well, nobody was more broke than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've lost it all.
I'm raising two boys, and have a gross income of just above three figures, just above 10,000. Raising two boys is just there's no money.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking home $250 a week off your unemployment check. There's no money, and so the commitment had to be there. Either I'm going to do it or not. So I probably have a different outlook than a lot of people do who have some spare cash laying around. I was desperate for an income, whereas somebody who's doing it for a hobby probably just wants to play around. So it's just a motivation level.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's funny how desperation will focus your mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you see an out, you take it. And sometimes people will wallow in their sadness and lay around and cry and say, I can't do it. But sometimes you just got to get up and go. And that's what I did. I decided that I'm going to go ahead and try it. I have some background. I can build a machine, and I'll be up and running within a few weeks. And if this doesn't work, then I'll have to do something else. But this looks like to be the best way for me.
Yeah, your build project on Joe's CNC forum was one of the quicker ones. From start to finish, you were done in just a couple of weeks. It looked like every day you were making real quick progress.
Yes. Well, you've got all day long every day. It doesn't take long.
Yeah, I think the record on that forum for the fastest build was 7 days.
Yeah.
7 or 14. I think it was 7 days. I'll have to go and double check that fact, but.
Yeah, somebody beat me on the speed, but I don't think anybody beat me on the cost.
No. Yeah. Yeah, there's very few folks who could have pulled that off. So yeah, it's very inspiring. It was watching everyone do their build threads and going about it. So if you were talking to somebody who was just going to start out in CNC, what advice would you give them?
I would suggest they build their own.
Why?
First of all, there's so many machines out there that can be built in a garage in a matter of a few weeks for about half the cost for an equal machine. I looked at a multicam 1000. It was $5,000 at the local dealer. Of course, I couldn't afford the three-phase and all that stuff. But I built a Joe's machine for a couple thousand. It was just about equal to that multicam.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure there was some things that it couldn't do as well as that multicam did, but for 90% of the work, I could do anything it could do.
I tend to ask a similar question to this one to all my listeners, or to all my guests on the show. If you knew that you couldn't fail, if you knew all your needs were met, you had access to all of the material that you would need to accomplish whatever it was that you set out to do in the next month, what project would you work on?
Today's episode is sponsored by The Maker's Guide, creator of the Triple Edge Finder. Get the edge you need, save time and frustration on your CNC project, and make setup a snap. Save time and material. Set up your workpiece on your CNC router table faster than ever. Accurately set your Z-axis height first time, every time. Automatically locate the corner or edge of a workpiece. Reset your starting point in the middle of a program. Quality crafted right here in the USA on US-made CNC machines. Get the edge you need today. Go to www.themakersguide.com/edge. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
If you knew that you couldn't fail, if you knew all your needs were met, you had access to all of the material that you would need to accomplish whatever it was that you set out to do in the next month, what project would you work on?
I would work on doing 3D artifacts for martial arts schools.
That's unusual. Tell me more.
Well, martial arts schools, we have a lot of vinyl and hand-printed stuff in our facilities, but we don't have any real artifacts like they do over in Asia. I've spent time in Japan and Korea, in the South Pacific, and the schools down over there have artifacts that's been there for generations. And the martial arts schools in the United States, some have artifacts, but a lot of them don't, and they'd like to have some. And so I took one of the Vetric Aspire's dragons and cut it for a martial arts school. The next thing I know, people are, oh yeah, we got to have that. And then they come up with all kinds of other things they got to have. And I just didn't have the time to do everything like there is, but now that I do have the time, I want to do that. I want to do 3D artifacts, 2.5D artifacts for the martial arts schools.
Do you have a resource that you could share with our listeners, something that you use that makes your job easier as you're working on your CNC projects or any phase of your business? What would it be?
Yeah, getting materials. That's the hard part. So, for example, I'm using a lot of Baltic birch lately for different projects. It's very expensive to buy, 1/2 inch and 5/8 Baltic birch finished on both sides. Very expensive. I bought a sheet of it for a project, and then it was up to $120 a sheet for that stuff. Well, then I went by a friend's house, and there was a laser store nearby, and they were cutting Baltic birch. And they were throwing the scraps into the dumpster. So I drove by the guy, and I said, Can I raid your dumpster for that Baltic birch? He said, take all you want. So now I'm hauling it off as fast as I can haul it off. It's 3 or 4 sheets a day. It's not a full sheet, but it's got 2 or 3 feet on each piece that I can use. Mm-hmm. I just located another spot for granite. I got an order for some granite tables with some engraving on the sides, 3D engraving on the sides. Mm-hmm. I found a spot to get granite. I asked the guy what it'd take to haul that off for him, and he says, just let me know when you want it. We'll help you load it because I don't want to drop on anybody's toes, but you can take it off if you want it. Oh, okay. So there are places around that will give you that stuff. You just got to go out and ask for it. You may have to pay a small fee for some of it, but sometimes it's yours for the taking. If you talk nice and bring a gift to the guy or something like that. I had some furniture grade 1.5 MDF, which is very dense MDF, and he gave me about 15 pieces of that. It was 2.5 feet by 8 feet long. I used all I could and made artifacts with that. And I took him the Vetric Chronicles clock they had. I made one for him and took it for his office. So these resources are available for the average CNC guy to go out and get these parts. Another friend of ours, Dave, you know who Dave is, mm-hmm. He has a connection for some hardwood small pieces. And he goes picks up these hardwood pieces. So there's material out there available for the guys if they want to go out there and hunt it down.
Yeah, I've seen that some people even have access to corian from folks who are making bathroom counters, although that's getting a little more scarce to find because corian's not as popular as it once was.
Right. There was a builder near me that was building corian countertops, and he gave me all the scraps I could haul off one time. You just have to ask for it. You got to walk around and look for it, but a lot of times they're just going to blow you off and say no. But if they see that you're sincere and careful and you're going to be grateful, they'll haul it off as fast as they can load it up.
How can people find out information about you and get in contact with you, Curt?
They can contact me through my Facebook, Karate Signs, and they can call me at my number at 616-773-9362 anytime between 10 and 3 daily and after 7 p.m. in the evening.
Tell me about Karate Signs.
Karate Signs. It's a niche I was wanting to fill for martial arts schools, karate signage, specific karate signage. For example, martial art graphics. There's not a whole lot out there, and I've collected a whole bunch of martial art graphics and 3D pieces of work I'm building up. It's for the martial art industry, and it's not for the guy who's opening tomorrow, who's on a shoestring. It's for the guy who's been around for a little bit of a while, who's running a pretty good program, who can afford to have some nice stuff in his place.
Now, there's one other thing that I want to discuss with you, Curt. For the last couple of years, you've been doing a class for others in CNC. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that called?
Mastermind CNC Users.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about it.
It's a seminar I've held in November a couple times for CNC users. And I'm modeling after the mastermind of Henry Ford and his gang, where these guys got together and pooled all their ideas and created from that. And the last one I had was last November, and we had a number of people come in, and Joanna, in fact, was there. And the guys come in and bring their stuff. And, of course, I take a lot of notes what's going on, and we compare different stories. We talk about different techniques. We look at software, we look at finishing techniques, wood graining, anything that would pertain to a CNC user that we could figure out how to make an income from our CNC machine.
Mm-hmm. So the participants were as much the students as they were teachers.
Exactly. We shared everything we could, yes. And we fed them, we gave them all the information we could. And one of the most popular modules we had was using node editing in vector software. For example, Corel Draw or Aspire or ArtCam. Node editing, which in building images in the software.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I teach my students.
Yes, and it seems to be one of the key elements that people really need, especially the beginners, because I'm very fortunate. I'm truly blessed that I was able to learn how to use Illustrator and Corel Draw for the sign business before when you develop your products and graphics and images. So I fell right into it with Aspire and an ArtCam. It's just a matter of node editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really an essential skill to know how to node edit and how to tweak a design in such a way that the parts have a smoother curve, or adjusting the size and spacing between lines so that that the bit will fit.
Right. And then kerning for the lettering,
mm-hmm.
proper spacing for the lettering. All these little things is about node editing. So our key element in machining, CNC machining, is learning how to node edit and build vectors. Everything we do is from a vector.
Yes.
So I think the next module we have in our next meeting will be, which we're planning in March, we'll probably have a big module on CNC vector creation and node editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the cornerstone. Once you learn that, are able to do many other things that you wouldn't be able to otherwise able to do.
Right. Right.
So I agree. So I'll put a link in the show notes for the information. How would you like folks to contact you about that class?
Contact me with my phone number and email. My email address is tangsooman@hotmail.com.
I think you're going to have to spell that.
Yes. TANGSOO man@hotmail.com. Tangle Alpha Navajo Golf Tang Suman.
Have you got any other things that we may have missed that you wanted to talk about or think about here in this process?
I can't think of anything other than my strength is the software and the machine running. And anybody has any questions about operating their software or running the machine, I'm game to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
The creation side, that's not my forte. But if they have trouble running their machines or looking for tool bits or software, I'm ready to go.
Well, Curt, it has been a real pleasure to have you on the CNC Router Tips podcast. I've really enjoyed getting to know you a bit better over the phone and through Skype. It's really nice when you meet someone online and then talk with them, and they're just as nice as they were while you were communicating with them online.
Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate the opportunity to share what I have. I don't have a whole lot, but a little bit I have. Anybody can have it all, because it's created a nice life for myself, and I like to have an attitude of gratitude by returning it back to anybody that can benefit from it.
Yeah, I find the more that you give away, the more you get. I don't know if you come across that in your life, but it seems to be the way my life works.
Yes.
So I enjoy helping people, and I know you do too. You've got the heart of a teacher, and that's a rare commodity, and it's really appreciated. I know that it's very, very much appreciated in the group. Seeing you welcome members as they come in, and piping up when they've got a question. That's very, very helpful.
Yes, it makes my day to be able to give something back, because I've benefited so much by knowing you and Dave and the others. The more I interact with more people, the more I get. So the more I get, the more I want to give back. I mean, there's no end to it. The circle is a continuing circle.
Mm-hmm. The circle is a continuing circle. There you have it, folks. Thank you so much for being our guest, Curt.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. There you have it, folks. Another inspiring story on someone who's taken their destiny in their own hands and then built a business with a CNC router table. Now, I don't know what's holding you back. If you want to start your own business with a CNC router table, I encourage you to take that leap of faith and get going. People will help you. And remember, the more you give, the more you get. I often mention many different types of software during the episodes, and hardware and cutters, and it can get a little confusing. So what I did was I put together a page on my website, cncroutertips.com/resources. And on that page, I list all sorts of resources there, from books to tools to software, all the things that I use that make my CNC experience better and easier. And I hope you'll check it out. So again, it's cncroutertips.com/resources. Now, if you'd like to have your question featured on the air, here's how. Need help? Ask me about your CNC router question on my podcast, the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'll be glad to help or try and get you the help you need. I want this podcast to be a fun and personal experience for everyone, and helpful. So let's keep it real and ask sensible questions. Please use common sense and show courtesy to everyone. That way everybody wins. Here are some guidelines to ensure that your question is qualified to be featured on the show. Please keep your questions under 1 minute in length. If it goes a little over that, that's fine, but don't ramble. If you have a website and URL, you're allowed to share it, but only once during the recording. Spammy or disrespectful or deeply private questions will not be considered for the podcast. If you need to ask more than one question, just make each question a separate voicemail. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the CNC Router Tips podcast. If you'd like to join our free mailing list, you can go to cncroutertips.com, and there's a link right there on the top of the page which tells you how to do that. Thank you so much, and have a great day.